I'm Diana Iannarone, and this is the third session of our series about creating the life you want. And sometimes to create the life you want, you have to be willing to let go of things that you don't want. And sometimes that includes people, and it's a little challenging to do that, I understand. But it is the way to get to where you want to go. I have a belief that we have to wake up, then stand up, and then we get to live free. So we talked a little bit in the previous sessions about being sometimes almost delusional about our own life. We are looking at things that don't feel right or experiencing things that don't feel right, but we really don't want to let go of it because then we'd have to start something all over again. Plus, in the case of abuse and manipulation, we fear what will actually happen if we let go of it because we're afraid of the consequences, often because these people have threatened that there would be consequences. So what is all this about? Well, we talked about that box, that you have the murder-suicide wall, which is when things are going wrong in your life. You think, well, if I could just kill that person, it'd be great. The bottom line is you're probably not going to do that, I hope. And so sometimes we think about killing ourselves, suicide. And hopefully most of us move right past that and we go to the next wall, which is the geographic wall that says, well, maybe I just have to escape this situation or this person. But then we get to the next wall. It's a get sick, go crazy wall. And often this is where it brings us right back to suicide and or murder. Because what we're really unwilling to do in those moments is change. Because if we were willing to change, then there's lots of other options. Okay, so what makes us unwilling to change? Well, in the case of abusive situations, which is really going to be the focus of what we're going to talk about today. Okay, we're going to focus on that for, say, give or take about 15 minutes. Abusive situations happen because we have low self-esteem. The self-esteem is the part of us that we feel like what we're worth on the inside. And what's odd, and it may stun a lot of people, is the people that are often a target for the particular kind of abuse that I work with, which is manipulation, control, mind control, more than the domestic violence where you get punched and beaten and so on. Although the pattern is the same or similar. When you're in these kinds of relationships, it's not quite so overt. It's a little more subtle. You're trying to decide if you're being abused. And if you're trying to decide, the answer is yes, because it's probably a pretty good indication that you are if you have to think about it. Okay. But basically, when we're at that get sick, go crazy wall, one of the things I talked about is it's time to look inside and look at ourselves. And when we do, what we often realize is that we have been tolerating the absolutely intolerable. And we've been tolerating it, what I started to say, was because the person that's a target of this kind of manipulation and abuse is normally somebody with very high self-confidence. They're doers. They can get things done, and they think they could fix everything. But they have low self-esteem. So in the sense of love relationships, they tend to sacrifice themselves, trying harder, thinking they could fix it, thinking they can make it better. And most times, that's a delusion. And unfortunately, because we're generally honest, trustworthy people, we tend to give that credence to other people as well, as if they're also those things. So when they tell us something, when they tell us they want to get better, when they tell us they can improve, when they tell us how much we mean to them, we believe them. And so we keep thinking we could just be better and then everything will get better. And the answer is that's a lie. So when you wake up, part one of changing your life, when you wake up and acknowledge and honor and embrace the conditions of your life, you then have to move to the next phase, which is to stand up. Standing up is something I think culturally, especially as women, but as people, is something that has to happen and is happening now because we're all recognizing we have to find our voice. We have to be willing to speak. But the thing is, when you live in this kind of manipulative, crazy life, when you go to speak, nobody believes you. They don't believe you because what you're suggesting sounds so insane that nobody could believe it's true. The only people that could believe it's true is the people that have also lived it. And so as we talk about this a little bit, I want to make sure you realize that it is not important that other people believe you. It is not important you try and convince them. What is important is that you reach out for people that do understand, okay? And you reach out for help. And that's part of what I do, is I help people escape these abusive environments. Well, what does an abusive environment look like? I don't like to use labels, but if I were to use a label, I would bring up 3 words: sociopath, narcissist, psychopath. I can tell you firsthand that although I was familiar with the terms, as most people are, I never really thought about them walking amongst us, of them being people that we interact with every day. And yet I had historically kept repeating that pattern. And what I do now is help people not have that pattern or break it if they already have it, because it is a dreadfully, dreadfully terrible thing to choose to latch on to and love these people. What is unique about those 3 characteristics, and probably the most predominant one, and the one that we just can't get our mind and heart around, is these people don't have any conscience. And if they don't have a conscience, then they can act cruelly and not feel bad about it. And we can't imagine that they don't feel bad about it, so we pretend like it didn't happen and we start to think we're crazy. Which is by design, by the way. They do what's called crazy making. And basically the intention of it is to make you think you're crazy. Now, how will they do it? Oh my goodness, there's so many possibilities. One is by telling you something didn't happen that did, or telling you that they didn't say something that they did. Hiding your belongings, hiding little things so that you could swear you put it somewhere, but it's not there. The famous term, if you will, for this is gaslighting. There's an old movie, called Gaslighting. But again, the labels aren't that important. It's if you're evaluating your sanity and you know that you've always been sane, it might be the person around you that is doing this to you intentionally. I like to distinguish between sociopaths and narcissists, and we'll put psychopath over here for a minute. I see them personally as quite different, although they can clearly overlap. And I use an analogy of if you were swimming with a sociopath, he's in the water and his whole thing, or hers, is about control. They want to control you. That's the most important thing. So when they're in that water, they're thinking, how can I control you in this moment? I know. I'm going to pretend I can't swim, or I just got a cramp, and oh my gosh, I need help. And then you, self-confident, very effective, powerful doer, are going to go over there and save them. You're going to work real hard to try and save them over and over and over again. And while you're trying to save them, they're shoving you under the water and everything. And the leader's like, I'm so sorry. I was just panicking. I couldn't help myself. I was so afraid I was going to drown. And, they might seem gracious for a little while, like, thank you, that was great. But then, of course, they'll tell the friends and stuff about how long it took you to come over or how inefficient you were or whatever. But whatever it is, you are to blame. They wouldn't have gotten the cramp if, whatever, you didn't have the meat and then go swimming. I don't care what it is. Whatever it is, it's your fault. So a sociopath is about control. So, if you just looked at them in the water and said, man, I hope you figure this out, they would. They would, because they could swim. It's just an illusion to control you. But it's very hard to do that when you think someone's going to die. But suicide, killing themselves, is paramount of their game. Is if you don't do this, I'm going to kill myself. I can remember being controlled by that for so long. I'm going to get on my motorcycle and drive into a tree, and I'd be chasing them out there. Now it's like, I hope you don't do that. But there is no longer an opportunity for anybody to control me. So that's kind of a sociopath. A narcissist is about themselves. Now, we all have some of these characteristics. I mean, who doesn't care about themselves or want validation or like to be told they're doing something well? I mean, but we can sustain even without it, but we feel better with it. A narcissist is all about that validation, is about themselves, is about how great they are, and they look for many people that can give that to them. They want you to be blowing smoke into or air into their lungs, like inflating them and telling them how wonderful they are. And the more you tell them how wonderful they are, the more reward you feel. And in both cases, by the way, it is about the reward, the future reward. The sociopath promises you about becoming a better person, about building this life that you dreamed of. Both of them are really great at knowing what you want, listening to what you want only for the purposes of giving you the illusion that you're going to get it if you stay in a relationship with them. The illusion, because it's never going to happen. Okay. And then the narcissist, when you're in the water with the narcissist, it's a whole lot different. The narcissist, he's actually just in the water going, oh, wow, I might drown. Oh, there's this thing I could use. I could grab onto this and I could get out of the water. And you know, they grab onto you and they're pulling you under, and all they're thinking about is their own survival. In both cases, we're just objects. We have no purpose, no meaning in their life whatsoever, except for their own survival of what they need. One is control and the other is validation, affection, love. Not real love, but this feeling that you're telling them they're great. So when the narcissist is doing this, he doesn't have the same kind of awareness. He's kind of just, I've got to get out of the water. So when you get out of the water and you say, you almost pushed me under, they're almost like, what? Yeah, well, I was trying to get out of the water. It's like, you're kidding, right? Okay. So to me, they're very different. But the reason I said I don't like labels is there's a spectrum all in between. Okay. And then over on the far side, you know, we have the psychopath who is like a further end on the I'm willing to harm spectrum. Again, this is all my opinion. I am not a doctor. I'm just experienced, as many of you are. That's why you're watching this. So you know, you're sitting there going, yes, it's just like that. Okay, yes, it's just like that. So what happens is when you wake up and you realize you're in these situations, I know for me, the reason why I like the label is once you could label it, it made sense of your insanity. It made sense that, oh my gosh, this person is doing this to me. This isn't my imagination. So for that reason, I like the label. But the reason why I don't is it limits, you know, people get tied up in trying to figure out who they're with and research them and figure out them. And no. It's time now to look at you. It's time now to figure out what do you want. It's time now to figure out your escape route. And I do mean escape route. Now, it's a little different. The sociopath doesn't want to let go. The sociopath wants to control you. So if you decide it's over, this is not good. That was not the plan. You can't decide that. They get to decide that. And they don't usually decide that because they like having somebody they can control, and being you've been a great little puppet, they don't really want to lose you. The narcissist, on the other hand, when you tire from your weary giving and you're not giving enough, they just grab from their inventory the next people they're going to go, and they just discard you like that. Poof. I equate it to, and I think I've said this in one of the other videos, I equate the difference being one is, you know, like if somebody you love died suddenly, you know, that's so hard to manage through because you had no preparation. That's kind of what it's like with a narcissist. Like all of a sudden, boom, done. What? Okay. With a sociopath, though, when you look back, you go, what was I doing in that for 3 years? I saw it the whole time. I saw how wrong it was, and I just kept staying because I wanted to believe their promises. And, you know, 3 years, 10 years, 30 years, I help people at all levels. So what this is about is helping people find their own internal power and decide to leave. But when you decide to leave, it requires strategy. It requires strategy because you could, in fact, be in danger. Your life can be in danger. And people will sometimes say to me, oh, but he's never hit me. But weren't you always a little afraid he might? Okay? So, or she. I just am saying he, number one, it is more prevalent in males, but number two, because I'm a female, so that's been my experience. So basically what I want to say to you is when it's time to escape, you have to do things carefully. Start subtly separating, you know, certain ties that you have to each other, like assets and so on. Which, by the way, keep in mind, in both the narcissist and the sociopath and psychopath, whatever, they're hurrying up. Hurry up, you're the best thing that ever happened. Oh my gosh, I never knew love until you came. I never knew I could be loved like this. Oh, and the spiritual side, you know. This is a twin flame, a soulmate. This is the perfect love. And all that's beautiful. And actually, frankly, I believe that exists. But when it's happening fast and it's like got to happen now, ask yourself, what's the hurry? What's the hurry? But they often want to gain assets together or move in together or get married or engaged because that creates a bond that's hard to get out of. It's a trap, okay? So to unravel that trap, to escape from that web, you're going to need help. Whether you speak with me or someone, but you're going to need help, okay? And you're going to need help because you need to figure out how to protect yourself in the process. And you need to be aware that when they know, things change. Things often escalate. So although it's not easy, it can be done. Do not get sick and crazy at that wall and stay there. You can change. You can go within, you can find your own power, and you can escape. A couple of tips. Look and see if your state is a one-party consent state or a two-party consent state. If it's a one-party consent state, this is just, you can look it up yourself. It means that you can film somebody without them knowing. And sociopaths and the like, they hate cameras or fear cameras more than they fear guns, weapons, because a camera can capture the truth. And generally speaking, these people are very charismatic and often have fantastic reputations in the outside world, and sometimes are running major organizations, sometimes are pretending like they do. But so I want you to leave today with a few thoughts. One is, I want you to raise your consciousness around your external world and then look inside, because that's where it's all really happening, and decide if you're being treated the way you really believe you deserve. And then if you're not, certainly in healthy relationships, you can talk to them and hopefully resolve it. Not all relationships that have abuse in them have this level that is irreparable. But if you've been trying, a lot of people I talk to say, I found things I wrote, letters I wrote to this person 10 years ago, and this is true of me as well. I could have written the same letter today. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And it's because it's never going to. It can change for short windows of time to give you hope, because hope is the weapon of destruction. The hope that it will get better. It's not going to. It's not going to. So raise your consciousness. Start to separate where you can, like start to get some independence, maybe store some money somewhere, do things to gain your own independence so that you can get free. Find like-minded individuals, people that are going through similar things. I have a couple of pages. One is, I just started literally yesterday, I think, is Standing Up, A Path to Being Whole Again on Facebook. And I'll try and put the links at the end of this video. But so that's one place where there'll be like-minded people. There's lots of other Facebook sites. My site is www.standingup.us. There's lots of things there. If you're in a legal battle or something like that, I don't give legal advice, but what I'm very good at is helping you take the chaos that you've been living and put it in a concise story so that it can be heard by legal counsel. Because what happens is you sound unbelievable. You're talking these crazy things and you don't sound believable. So we've got to put believability to your story so that you can get the help that you need. And that's one of the key things that I do. I also help people, they'll get text messages or phone calls and so on, and they don't know how to respond. Well, if you can, no contact is best when you're trying to leave, but that's not always possible. So lots of people need guidance with things like that. Also, and critically important, I am an author of Me and My Shadow, Move from Fear and Control to Love and Freedom. And this book is definitely a move from fear and control to love and freedom. And the first half is about living in this life with these kinds of individuals. And the second half is about how to get out. The break point is on 173. So some people that have had the book, the front is a little too intense for them. So go to 173. And then that's where the healing begins, and then you'll be ready to read the beginning. So you got to kind of monitor it. Again, my name's Diana Iannarone. You can reach me at diana@standingup.us, diana@standingup.us. Or my number is 631-886-1094. Wake up, stand up, live free. You deserve it. Thank you so much. Stay tuned.